The night looked perfect from the outside. Lights glowed through the tall windows of the mansion. Soft music played in the background, and expensive cars lined the driveway like a silent display of power. Inside, the richest guests in the city laughed, talked business, and admired the life they all wished they had. At the center of it all stood Victor Hale, a billionaire known not just for his wealth, but for his cold attitude and pride. People respected him, feared him, but very few truly knew him. But sometimes, it only takes one moment to reveal who someone really is. In the middle of the party, while waiters moved quietly and everything seemed perfectly controlled, something unexpected happened. A young maid, dressed simply and trying to do her job, accidentally stepped into Victor's path. She was careful, polite, and clearly nervous. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the tray, and one could notice something else. She was pregnant. Not many people paid attention to her. To most, she was invisible, but Victor noticed. The room didn't go silent, not completely. Conversation slowed, eyes turned, and there was a shift in the air. The kind of moment where people sense something is wrong, but no one dares to step in. Victor's expression hardened. Without thinking twice, without asking a single question, he reacted in a way that would change everything. And then he simply walked away. No apology, no hesitation, just a faint smile on his face, as if nothing important had happened. The maid stood there, frozen. Shock, pain, and something deeper filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just held on to herself, steadying her breath, protecting the life she carried. Around her, people whispered, unsure whether to speak up or stay silent. Because when power speaks, most people choose to stay quiet. But what no one in that room knew, what Victor Hale didn't even consider for a second, was that this quiet, humble woman was not alone in the world. Far away from the noise of that mansion, someone else was about to hear what happened. Someone who didn't care about money, status, or fear. Someone who had spent years building a name not through wealth, but through respect, strength, and loyalty. And when he found out what had been done to his sister, nothing would stay the same. Because this wasn't just a story about a billionaire and a maid. It was about arrogance meeting consequences. It was about power being challenged in a way no one expected. And as the night continued, with laughter slowly returning and the music playing again, Victor had no idea that the moment he walked away smiling was the exact moment his world quietly began to fall apart. The question is, who was her brother? Back in a small, quiet neighborhood far from the bright lights of that mansion, the night felt completely different. There were no luxury cars, no music, no people trying to impress each other. Just a simple house, a dim porch light, and a man sitting alone, staring at his phone. His name was Marcus. To most people, he wasn't famous. You wouldn't see his face on billboards or in business magazines. But in certain circles, his name carried weight. The kind of weight that didn't come from money, but from reputation. People trusted him. And those who crossed a line learned very quickly that respect wasn't optional. Marcus wasn't the type to worry easily. But tonight, something felt off. He had tried calling his younger sister, Alina, a few times earlier that evening. She usually picked up quickly, even if she was busy. She always did. But tonight, there was no answer. No message. Nothing. At first, he told himself it was nothing. Maybe she was working late. Maybe her phone battery had died. He tried to ignore the feeling, but it stayed there, quiet, heavy, growing stronger with every passing minute. Then finally, his phone buzzed. It wasn't Alina. It was a message from an unknown number. Just a short video clip. No text. No explanation. Marcus frowned slightly before pressing play. The video was shaky, clearly recorded by someone trying not to be noticed. It showed a crowded room, bright lights, people dressed in expensive clothes. For a second, nothing seemed unusual, just another rich party. And then he saw her, Alina, standing there with a tray in her hands. Nervous, tired, but still trying to do her job. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He watched as a man stepped into the frame, tall, confident, surrounded by people who clearly respected him, even through the poor video quality. There was something about his presence, cold, untouchable. Marcus didn't know his name yet, but he would. The The moment played out quickly, but it felt slow. Too slow. Every second stretched as Marcus watched his sister stand there, unaware of what was about to happen. And then it happened. The video cut right after. No sound. No aftermath. Just that one moment and silence. Marcus didn't move. His face didn't show anger right away. It was something else. Something deeper. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. He replayed the video. Once. Twice. 3 times. Each time, his grip on the phone tightened. Around him, the quiet house felt even more still. The clock on the wall ticked louder than before. Outside, a dog barked in the distance, but it felt far away, unimportant. Marcus slowly stood up. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He just walked to the window and looked out into the dark street. His mind already working. Who sent the video? Who was that man? And most importantly, why was his sister there alone? Marcus finally looked back at his phone, his jaw set now. He tapped the screen and made a call. Find out everything about this place, he said calmly when the line connected. Every detail. And I want a name. There was a brief pause on the other end, as if the person already understood the seriousness in his voice. Then the reply came, simple and clear. Give me an hour. Marcus ended the call without another word. Back at the mansion, the party was still going. People laughed again. Drinks were refilled. The moment had already been forgotten by most. Victor Hale stood near the balcony now, relaxed, confident, completely unaware. But far away, in that quiet house, something had already started moving, and once it reached him, there would be no ignoring it. Back at the mansion, the night slowly moved forward as if nothing had happened. The music grew louder again, laughter returned, and glasses clinked under soft golden lights. But not everyone had forgotten. A few guests kept stealing glances toward the hallway where it had happened, their whispers low and careful. In places like this, people didn't speak openly. They observed, remembered, and waited. Alina had been quietly asked to step away from the main hall. Not fired, not comforted, just moved out of sight, as if that would erase the moment. She now sat in a small service room near the kitchen, her hands resting gently over her stomach. Her breathing had finally slowed, but her thoughts hadn't. She wasn't just thinking about what happened. She was thinking about what it meant. This job wasn't just a job. It was her stability, her way of standing on her own, without asking anyone for help. She had worked hard to get here, even if it meant long hours and silent struggles. She never wanted to depend on anyone, not even her brother, especially not him. A soft knock came at the door before it opened slightly. An older woman stepped in, someone from the staff who had been working in the mansion for years. Her face carried concern, but also caution. You should go home tonight, she said gently. Get some rest. Alina gave a small nod, but didn't stand up. If I leave now, will I still have this job tomorrow? The woman hesitated. That silence was enough of an answer. Meanwhile, just a few floors above, Victor Hale stood in his private office, away from a noise. The large windows behind him overlooked the city, glowing under the night sky. He held a glass in his hand, calm as ever, but his mind was not entirely on the party anymore. What happened downstairs? His assistant asked carefully, standing near the door. Victor didn't turn around. Nothing important. There are guests talking. Let them talk. His tone was steady, dismissive. To him, this was already over. A small incident. A forgettable moment. In his world, things only mattered if they affected power, money, or reputation, and even then, he knew how to control the outcome. Still, something about the assistant's silence made him glance back briefly. What? Victor asked. She wasn't just any worker, the assistant said quietly. Some of the staff seemed uneasy. Victor's expression didn't change much, but there was a slight pause. Not doubt, just calculation. Then replace her if it becomes a problem, he replied. Simple. Back in the quiet house across the city, Marcus wasn't sitting anymore. Papers, notes, and a laptop were spread across the table. The man on the other end of the earlier call had delivered faster than expected. Victor Hale, billionaire, investor, known for sharp deals and an even sharper personality. No major scandals, no legal trouble. Clean on paper. Too clean. Marcus leaned back slightly, his eyes scanning every detail on the screen. He wasn't just reading facts. He was studying patterns. People like Victor didn't rise to that level without stepping on others along the way. The difference was most people never saw it, but now Marcus had. Another message came through. This time it wasn't a video. It was a photo. Alina, leaving the mansion alone, her head slightly lowered, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. The timestamp showed it was just minutes ago. Marcus stared at the image longer than he expected. She hadn't called him. She hadn't said anything, and that told him more than words ever could. He picked up his phone again, his decision already made. But this time, his voice carried something new. Not just calm, but purpose. "Keep watching that house," he said, "and find out who recorded that video." Across the city, two worlds were quietly moving toward each other. One built on power and control, the other built on loyalty and truth. And neither of them was ready for what would happen when they finally collided. The night didn't end the way most nights do. It didn't fade quietly into sleep. Instead, it stretched, tense, restless, as if something unseen was moving beneath the surface. Alina reached her small apartment just before midnight. The street was quiet, the kind of silence that usually brought comfort. But tonight, it felt different. Heavy. She unlocked the door slowly and stepped inside, closing it gently behind her. For a moment, she just stood there, her hand still on the handle, as if she needed to make sure she was truly alone. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to check to know who it might be. But when she looked down, it wasn't Marcus. It was an unknown number. Her heart skipped slightly before she opened the message. There were no words, just a simple line of text. "Are you okay?" Alina stared at the screen. Someone had seen. Someone had recorded it. And now, someone was reaching out. Her fingers hovered over the phone, unsure whether to respond or stay silent. Because once she answered, things would change. And deep down, she already knew it was too late to pretend nothing had happened. Across the city, inside the glass walls of his office, Victor Hale was still awake. The party had ended. The guests were gone, but he hadn't left yet. The city lights reflected in the windows around him, making it look like he was standing in the middle of something much larger than himself. His assistant stepped in again, more serious this time. "There's something you should see." Victor didn't like interruptions this late, but something in her voice made him turn. She placed a tablet in front of him. It was the same video. But this time, it wasn't just one clip. It had been shared. Quietly, privately, passed from one person to another. Not public yet, but spreading. Victor watched it once, his expression unreadable. Then again, this time, slower. "Who has this?" he asked. "We don't know yet." That was the first real problem. Not the moment itself, but the lack of control over it. Victor placed the tablet down carefully, his mind already moving faster now. This wasn't about guilt. It was about risk, reputation, power. And someone, somewhere, now had something that could challenge that. "Find the source," he said quietly, "before this grows." Back in the quiet neighborhood, Marcus stepped outside his house. The air was cool, but he barely noticed. A black car pulled up slowly in front of him, headlights cutting through the darkness. The window rolled down. "We have a location," the driver said, and a name connected to the recording. Marcus didn't ask questions. He simply got into the car. As it pulled away, his phone lit up again. This time it was Alina. He looked at the screen for a second longer than expected before answering. "Marcus." Her voice was soft, tired, but steady. There was a pause. "I didn't want to tell you," she said quietly. "I didn't want this to become something bigger." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, listening. "It already is," he replied. Silence filled the line. Not empty silence, but the kind that carries everything unspoken between two people who understand each other too well. "Where are you?" he asked. "At home." "Stay there," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "Don't open the door for anyone." The car picked up speed. Across the city, in the tall glass mansion, Victor stood by the window again. But this time his reflection looked different, sharper, focused, and for the first time that night, he wasn't relaxed. Because somewhere out there, someone was stepping closer. Someone who wasn't impressed by wealth. Someone who wasn't afraid of power. And as both men moved forward in their own worlds, one thing became clear. This wasn't going to stay a quiet incident anymore. Something was about to happen. And when it did, neither of them would be able to walk away smiling. The city felt smaller that night, as if every road, every light, and every shadow was somehow connected. The black car moved smoothly through the empty streets, but inside, the air was tight with focus. Marcus sat still, his eyes fixed ahead, replaying everything in his mind, not just a video, but the silence from his sister, the unknown number, the timing of it all. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt planned. Who sent the video? Marcus finally asked. The driver hesitated for a second. That's the strange part. The number traces back to a private line, registered under Hale Group. Marcus turned slightly. Victor Hale's company? Yes. That changed everything. For a moment, the car seemed quieter than before. If the video came from inside Victor's own system, then this wasn't just a recording by a guest. Someone close to him had captured it. Someone who had access and a reason to send it out. Keep digging, Marcus said, his voice lower now. I want names. Back at Alina's apartment. She hadn't moved far from the door. The message still sat on her screen, unanswered. But her thoughts were no longer just about fear. They were about confusion. Why would someone from that house reach out to her? And how did they even get her number? Her phone buzzed again, making her flinch slightly. Another message. You shouldn't trust anyone there. Not even him. Alina's brows tightened as she read it again. Not even him? Before she could think further, a soft sound came from outside her door. Not a knock. Not exactly. More like a faint movement in the hallway. She froze. Her eyes slowly shifted toward the door, her breath becoming shallow, without her realizing it. Marcus's words echoed in her mind. Don't open the door for anyone. She stepped back quietly, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. The silence outside returned, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like someone was still there. Across the city, Victor Hale was no longer standing still. His office lights were brighter now, his assistant moving quickly between calls. The calm image he carried earlier had started to crack, not outwardly, but in the way he was thinking. Sir, the assistant said, holding a file, we found something else. Victor didn't respond right away. He simply looked at her, waiting. The maid? Alina, she continued. She wasn't hired through the usual agency. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. Then how did she get in? That's the problem. There's no clear record. It's like someone placed her here intentionally. For the first time that night, Victor said nothing. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because this didn't fit into his control world. Meanwhile, the black car carrying Marcus slowed down as it turned into a quieter part of the city. Old buildings, fewer lights, and a feeling that things here didn't follow the same rules as the rest of the city. We're close, the driver said. Marcus looked out the window, his thoughts sharper now. If someone inside Victor's circle sent that video, and if Alina's presence in that mansion wasn't accidental, then this wasn't just about one moment. It was something bigger. Something that had already started long before tonight. Back in her apartment, Alina slowly reached for her phone again. Her fingers trembled slightly, but this time she didn't hesitate. She typed a message. Who are you? For a few seconds, there was no reply. Then suddenly, her lights flickered. Once, twice, and her phone screen went dark for a split second before lighting up again with a new message. I'm the reason you were there. Alina's heart pounded as she stared at the words. And in that exact moment, far across the city, Marcus stepped out of the car, unaware that the truth he was about to uncover might not be what he expected at all. Marcus stepped into the dim building, his footsteps echoing softly against the concrete floor. The air smelled old and used, but there was light coming from one room at the end of the hallway. He didn't rush. Every step was controlled, steady, like he already knew this moment mattered more than anything that had come before. He pushed the door open. Inside, a man stood near a table filled with screens and wires, the glow reflecting across his face. He didn't look surprised. In fact, he almost looked relieved. "You're Marcus," the man said quietly. Marcus didn't answer right away. His eyes moved across the room, taking in every detail, the equipment. The footage paused on one of the screens, the same video of Alina from a mansion. "You sent it," Marcus said. The man nodded. "Yes." "Why?" The man exhaled slowly, as if he had been waiting for that question. "Because that moment you saw, it wasn't supposed to stay hidden. And your sister, she wasn't supposed to be there by accident." Marcus's expression hardened. "Explain." Back at her apartment, Alina stood frozen, staring at her phone. The message still glowed on the screen. "I'm the reason you were there." Her heart raced as another message appeared. "You needed to see who he really is." Her breathing became uneven. "Who are you?" she whispered, even though she was typing the same words again. Across the city, in that quiet room, the man finally spoke. "Victor Hale doesn't just control businesses," he said. "He controls people. Quietly, carefully. No evidence, no noise. Anyone who stands in his way disappears from the system. Jobs, records, opportunities. Gone." Marcus listened, silent but focused. "I work for him," the man continued. "Security, digital operations. I saw how things were handled. I saw names erased, lives pushed aside like they meant nothing." "And my sister?" Marcus asked, his voice low. The man looked directly at him. "She was placed there." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I found her profile weeks ago." The man said, "Clean record, strong work ethic, no connections that could trace back easily, except one." Marcus didn't need to ask. "Me," he said. The man nodded. "Victor doesn't know who you are yet, but I do, and others do too. People who have been watching him for a long time." Marcus stepped closer. "So you use her?" There was no anger in his voice, but there was weight behind it. "I gave her a chance to expose him," the man replied. "And it worked. That video is already spreading, quietly but fast. The right people are starting to see it." Back at the mansion, Victor stood in his office, staring at his phone as calls kept coming in, not from guests, but from partners. Questions were being asked, concerns raised. The control he always had was slipping. "Sir," his assistant said carefully, "this is becoming public." Victor didn't respond immediately. His mind was racing, but not in panic, in strategy. "Prepare a statement," he said finally, "and find that source. Now." But for the first time, there was something different in his voice. Pressure. Back in the apartment, Alina's phone rang suddenly. "Marcus." She answered immediately. "Marcus." "I know," he said, cutting her off gently. "I know everything." There was a pause. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong," he replied. And for the first time that night, her eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but from relief. The silence between them was short. "I'm coming to you," Marcus said. But as he ended the call and turned back to the man in the room, something didn't sit right. "You said she was chosen because she had no connections," Marcus said slowly. The man froze for just a second. Marcus noticed. "And yet, you knew exactly who I was," Marcus continued, his eyes narrowing. "Before any of this happened." The room went quiet. Too quiet. The man's expression changed. Not nervous, not afraid, but something closer to acceptance. "That's the part one didn't tell you," he said softly. Marcus didn't move. The man reached for one of the screens and tapped it. A new file opened. Not Victor, not the mansion, but Alina from weeks ago, talking to someone, smiling, trusting, and that someone was the same man standing in front of Marcus. "I didn't just place her there," he admitted. "I got close to her first." Marcus's breath slowed, his mind connecting the pieces. "You planned all of it," he said. The man shook his head slightly. "No, I started it for one reason." "And what reason is that?" Marcus asked. The man looked at him, his voice steady. "To bring you out." Marcus's eyes locked onto his. And in that moment, everything shifted. Because this was never just about a billionaire, a maid, or a single moment caught on video. It was something deeper, something personal. And as sirens began to echo faintly in the distance, Getting closer, louder, Marcus realized the truth. He hadn't just walked into someone else's plan. He had been the plan all along. The sound of sirens grew louder outside, filling the silence that had settled between them. Marcus didn't look away from the man in front of him. Everything now made a different kind of sense. The messages, the video, even Alina being placed in that mansion. It wasn't random. It wasn't just about exposing an arrogant billionaire. It was about pulling him into something much bigger. Why me? Marcus asked quietly. The man didn't rush to answer this time. Because you're one of the few people he can't control, he said. People like Victor Hale rely on silence, fear, influence, but you don't operate in his world. Marcus's expression stayed calm, but his thoughts were sharper than ever. And you thought using my sister was a way to reach me? He said. The man lowered his gaze for a moment. I knew it was risky, but I also knew you would come. And now, things are already moving. The video is out. The truth is spreading. People are starting to question him. Outside, vehicles came to a stop. Doors opened. Footsteps approached. Marcus finally stepped back slightly, creating distance, not out of fear but control. You could have done this without her, he said. The man nodded slowly. Maybe, but it wouldn't have worked this fast, or this clearly. At the mansion, Victor Hale stood surrounded by screens. Calls still coming in. His assistant handed him updates one after another. The video had reached media outlets. Business partners were asking questions. Some were already pulling back quietly. For the first time, Victor didn't look in control. He looked cornered. Sir, authorities are asking for a statement, the assistant said carefully. Victor stared at the screen again. The same moment replaying over and over. The moment he had dismissed like it meant nothing. Now it meant everything. Back in the apartment, Alina sat on the edge of her bed, holding her phone tightly. The fear from earlier had slowly faded, replaced by something else. Strength. She didn't fully understand everything that had happened, but she knew one thing clearly now. She wasn't invisible. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. It's over. I'm coming. Her shoulders dropped slightly as she read it, a quiet relief settling in her chest. Back in the dim building, the door suddenly opened. Officers stepped in, voices firm but controlled. The man didn't resist. He simply raised his hands, slightly calm. Marcus didn't move. He watched as everything unfolded, his mind already stepping beyond this moment. Because this wasn't just about one night. It was about what came after. Days later, the story spread everywhere. Headlines talked about the arrogant billionaire, the viral video, and the questions around power and accountability. Victor Hale's image, once untouchable, was now being questioned from every side. Investigations began not just into that night, but into everything connected to him. And Alina? She didn't go back to the mansion. She didn't need to. People reached out, not out of pity, but respect. She had become the face of something bigger. A reminder that even the quietest voices can be heard. One evening, as the sun set quietly outside her window, Marcus sat across from her. For once, there was no tension, no urgency. You should have told me, he said gently. Alina gave a small, tired smile. I didn't want to bring your world into mine. Marcus shook his head slightly. We were already in the same world. You just didn't see it yet. There was a pause, but it was peaceful. What happens now? She asked. Marcus looked out the window, thinking for a moment. Now! People start paying attention, he said, and that's where real change begins. The night that started with arrogance and silence had ended with truth and consequences. And somewhere in the city, behind closed doors, people who once felt untouchable were finally realizing something simple. Every action has a moment where it comes back. Sometimes quietly, sometimes all at once, but it always comes back.